All right, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and we'll start with the indices as normal. Then we'll talk about sectors, and then we'll talk about some individual names, particularly where we saw some call activity today. So S&P futures I have up right in front of me, and they're up. Again, another kind of choppy looking day, up 15 basis points, but moving in the right direction. One thing that I'll kind of just go back to, it's a point that I've been talking about over and over, is it continues to be a stock pickers market, and which again does not mean things are easy, but we do see just this rolling rotation. I know everybody's kind of talking about this now, but it just depends on the day what group is going to outperform and possibly make a new 52-week high. Today, I'll start with, well, let me just finish the rest of the indices before I get ahead of myself. IWM just continues. I would say this is this is pretty positive after that monster day yesterday in the small caps. They had a little bit of volatility that came in again right around the open, but did pretty well today and ended up another up 26 basis points. So another outperforming day. And again, getting more overbought here. So, I'm not going to say this again, but man, we are really getting overbought. Um, I've not put on a trade yet, but maybe that's tomorrow that I do that. The RSI is now an 81. So really an overbought territory. Again, I'm looking down here. This is the RSI indicator, 81. I think it would be a great place to put that on. Honestly, I forgot to put that trade on today. Otherwise, I would have done it. But I think at this point, selling out of the money call spreads is a really good idea. I said that yesterday too. We're up another 26 basis points, but that's okay. It is what it is. Qs were underperforming for most of the day again. But they held in there. They finished base essentially flat. But all year long, the Qs have been the outperformer. Except for around the election time, and there seemed to be just kind of having a little bit of issue the last couple weeks, I would say. They just haven't been the one that's underperforming. Again, not a warning sign or anything like that. Again, we're seeing other things that are outperforming. So let me go into to just a quick sector review. And it's biotech. So you always kind of, if you're a day trader and a swing trader like I am, sometimes you'll look at candles midday and you're like, wow, that's a nice candle for the day, but it ends differently. And I'll go into an example of one name that I'm looking at that didn't close like I wanted it to. But you look at this candle today, and so I did send this out on Twitter earlier, but now that we've got a closing bar, again, closing print, the most important thing, biotech really strong, up 1.7%, and we basically, of course, we know about this big move up in biotech. Again, I'm looking at the XBI ETF. I see just a ton of people continue to look at IBB, which is fine, but IBB is just doing something much differently than what XBI is. And there's a very big difference between these two ETFs. So I like to go over this every once in a while, but IBB is your big cap. There's small cap in there too, but it's a market cap weighted ETF. So the big names, which is a big difference in biotech, right? I mean, there's a lot of small cap names, and there's a big difference between the big guys. So Amgen, Celgene, Gilead, Biogen, and even if you want to throw Regeneron in there, are the top weights in this ETF. So that's why the picture is different. XBI is an equally weighted ETF. So every name gets the exact same representation. So those names are in there. The Amgen, the Biogen, the Gilead, they're all in there too, but they're different weights. They're the same representation as all the other ones. So you could see that IBB is not giving that up move yet after this consolidation, but XBI is. That's a clean break higher, and almost a new MACD crossover, which is really nice when you get this on a 52-week high, which I believe that's what it is. If not, it's close. That's the overall, or the overall high. for the XBI ETF is 91.11. So you know that's a decent move higher. Even just to play this for that up to the previous resistance is a decent move higher. So really nice looking. You know, a lot of people calling out different names that are doing that are starting to break out. You know, you just see the Twitter activity kind of perk up with everybody talking about different biotech names. But yeah, I mean, for me, I always want to look at the whole sector and then say, hey, is the whole sector doing it, or is it just an individual name or two? It's the whole sector, so it's not individual names that are outliers in this group. I think you can kind of pick which one you want to do, or you could just own the ETF outright. Regardless, was the strongest group. And again, I think it's very positive that after a month of this big up move of consolidation, it's resolving itself to the upside, which is important. Next, the home build, something that has absolutely nothing to do with biotech. Look at the damn home builders. I talked about this earlier in the week and sent out a chart of ITB. Again, big difference between IT. Not that I want to spend much time on this again, but ITB and XHB. ITB is really even though it's called the home construction ETF, it's really the home builders ETF. About 65% of this ETF is the straight home builders. So this thing is breaking it. You know, another group out there, 52-week high. So really strong there. I'll give you another chart. There was some relative strength in this group the other day. The healthcare providers ETF. This is names like UNH. Real nice candle today on UNH. I sold some put spreads in here. So I have a bullish put spread on once this big move happened here. And UNH, which has been a very, very strong name, is reclaiming that 50-day moving average, which on previous test of the 50-day and recapture of the 50-day moving average has worked out pretty well. So this trade that I put on where I sold put spreads is now starting to work a little bit. Sorry, I'm just reading a headline or two, but so that looks pretty good. You know, I don't want to just call out groups that are making 52-week highs. You know, part of the reason why I do this video is to kind of look for setups, right? So one name I mentioned, one name did not close very well. Pepsi. This is, you know, you try to figure out which group is going to be rotated into next. The whole consumer staple space has gotten obliterated, especially with the move in rates. People have kind of, you know, exited this trade, and so I'm starting to look for quality names that are a bit oversold, such as Pepsi. Look at the volume today, by the way, in Pepsi. So not really sure what happened. This is a name that I've been watching because I thought it would hold the 200-day moving average a couple days ago. Again, you could search my Twitter handle and the ticker Pepsi. I thought it would hold the 200-day moving average. It did not, so it broke. Then I was looking for a recapture of the 200-day moving average. I was going to put on a long, even though this name reports earnings, I think, on the 4th. But it didn't do it at the end of the day. It was pretty nasty looking in terms of giving back some of those gains. If you go over to the 1 hour time frame, you can see that we briefly got into the this week's value area, but it failed. So the level that I'm watching, you know, you can set an alert here, which I do a lot of the time, is 112.30. So that's what I'm looking at for that name. A couple other names to kind of gloss over. You know, the FANG names, I really didn't pay too much attention to them, so I'm not even going to cover them too much. We did see a weekly call, but we saw a repeat call buyer in Facebook today. I thought that name was one name that, you know, really got dogged earlier and is still kind of retracing this candle. So there was some call buying in this one. Let me talk about Micron and Applied Materials for a minute. I mean, they just are going after, still buying calls like crazy in Micron. Just throughout the day. And it's basically been like this every day for the last couple months, really, in Micron. Applied Materials, look at this candle today. You know, this is a name that I've talked about several times where they bought a whole bunch of calls. The name really didn't do anything on earnings. Just because the overall tape was difficult, but man, they kept on coming and coming and coming in Applied Materials, buying Applied Materials calls, and you know, they were right, and they bought some yesterday and they bought some today, so they're still looking for, you know, it's been a huge move the last couple days, but It's still not overbought yet. It's close. It's close, but so this could have more upside. So that's a couple names in the semi space. Also, Broadcom, which I keep talking about, looked like it tried to get going a little bit today, right off the opening. Hold of the bottom of value and a bounce, but really wasn't too much momentum behind Broadcom today. Still watching this name. I actually started a position today in this one. What else? A couple other things to kind of mention, other stocks. From yesterday, Deutsche Bank, huge winner. And I think they bought more of these. So, this was a purchase that we did in the Tribeca trade room at 99 cents, the November calls, and was able to take a target today for $1.43. And I think they purchased more of these. It's kind of difficult to tell because this March trade block went up. These are the March 21s, so pretty far up there. I would have to think that those are bought, even though it says mid-market on them. They bought a little bit, I think, of those October 18 calls, which is a pretty small trade. These were swept as well. So this one, I think, I'm staying long half my position, kind of a gap up, but you're going to see these gaps with Deutsche Bank because, it is a name that trades in Germany. So, the move has already happened by the time that, our markets, the U.S. markets open. So therefore, it's going to be very gappy. But again, right at the 50-day moving average for this one. A couple other names to talk about. What did we see today? Oh, also, I did exit my position of MIK today. Why did I do that? Because it looks like they sold their calls today. 6,600 of those November 22 and a half calls. So maybe they probably didn't get out of the whole thing. They probably took profits like I did. I actually saw this and I got out of the whole thing today. So that may be a little bit premature, but I'm happy with getting in at 55 cents and getting out. I hit one target at 105 and I took the balance off at 93 cents. So fine, that's a good enough trade for a name that I really know nothing about. So that was another trade. NCLH, nice trade, short dated trade. This set up pretty well. I mean, it would have set up even better if I would have hit one more price target. But two profit targets in this one today. They bought calls right on the low and made a nice move back. So I took this off. I took half the position off. It's an October position. I don't really like to carry October positions, especially large ones, for that long at all. Most of the time, not even overnight. But being that I took half the position off, maybe I'll hold into tomorrow and call it a day. But this was a trade. Let me see if I can find it. Where did I get into NCLH? I guess I have it here. Oh, I don't have it there. 171, and I took targets up to 215 in the November 52 and a half call. Sorry for the delay on that one. So a couple other trades. I talked about biotech. Also a lot of pharma calls. Bristol Myers, big November 67 and a half calls. They came into these a couple times today. BlackBerry, we saw some calls in the morning. A couple other names. Texas Instruments. JD.com saw a lot of puts today. So that was a name that we tried playing for a dip today. It needs to hold right here. That's Home Depot, which made a 52-week high. Wrong chart. So JD.com, this whole group. I was just talking to somebody on Twitter about this. This whole China Internet group is taking a breather right now. So this name, has gone from stopped right at the top of value, on the value areas, and has gone all the way below. And we'll see what it does tomorrow. If not, if it can't hold this level, I would watch for a move down to the 200-day moving average. But we've had, I think, 4 days in a row of down days. I think this whole Chinese Internet group is starting to get oversold. They're not oversold, but it's definitely taking a breather. If you look at the how the whole group is behaving, it's into the 50-day moving average. And again, this tracks. I've talked about this a lot, but if you go to the Hang Seng, the Hang Seng is into the 50-day moving average as well. So we'll see what this does overnight. You could watch this in the overnight markets and see. I would love to see if this gets a boost tonight, but we'll see. So a couple other trades. There was, Western Digital calls I thought were interesting. Some Marriott calls. Dick's Sporting Goods was on the back of the story about Finish Line possibly being taken out. It was a story on the New York Post about Finish Line possibly being taken out. There was a very late day NVIDIA, a real nice NVIDIA call buyer too, and I'll kind of leave it there because this video has been, I don't like to go over 15 minutes in this video, and I see it basically right there. But right at the end of the day, this came up 2 minutes before the close. They bought some December 210 calls for 380, above ask and swept. So who knows? Maybe a broker comes out with something tomorrow in Nvidia. But always try to watch what people do the last couple of minutes of before the close. And those were bought 210 calls in Nvidia for 387 there. So I'll leave it there. Have a great night, everybody, and see you back in the trading room Friday morning for quarter end. Thanks, everybody.